Okay, I've been trying to think about a good format to share this story, and I can't really think of one, so hopefully this is what we're gonna do. I'm a little distracted because I'm driving, which probably will make it easier to tell this story, so
It's me, Molly. It's time for...
give me 1 second. So I'm in a little bit of traffic, and I'm gonna kind of focus on the road, but I do want to tell this story, and I think this way I won't get quite as emotional about it. But so the other day, Millie is a button puller. I don't know if anyone out there has a button puller, but she pulls her button out with the balloon fully inflated. She would pull it out every hour if I didn't do a lot of things to stop her from doing that. We use a lot of tape and a lot of different things to keep her button in place. But the first time I really left her with my husband, she broke 5 buttons. And it was fortunate that I had kept all of her old buttons. So my biggest advice is keep every old button. If it's not broken, keep it in case of an emergency. I happen to have all these old buttons that they were able to use. Anyway, so she's a button puller, and I had put her in the bathtub and she was taped up. I have these belts that I put on her when she's in the bath, and I hadn't put one on her because I was right there with her, and so I hadn't done that, and the bathtub is right here, and my bathroom's right, or my toilet is right there, but you can't see the bathtub. So I went to the restroom because, even moms have to go potty, and I came back and her button was out and gone, and I checked everywhere, and I was sure she had it in the bath, but I checked in her bed, and she started making this sound like she was gagging. Well, Millie doesn't eat anything by mouth, and she doesn't put anything in her mouth. Maybe like 3 times ever has she put anything in her mouth other than her hands. She won't do a pacifier. She's always been pretty averse to anything orally. And she started making this sound like she was choking. And then she poops in the bathtub. So now we have poop, and she's making this sound. And it's getting a little more significant, the sound, and it's starting to get scary. And all of a sudden I thought, what if she swallowed her button? And then I thought, that is impossible. There's no way that my daughter, who doesn't swallow, would put this huge balloon in her mouth and then swallow it and get to where she's choked. But I can't find the button anywhere, and it starts looking like she's really choking. And so, mind you, this is all like seconds, right? And so I get her out of the bathtub, and she doesn't like anything in her mouth. So I tried to put my finger in her mouth to feel around, and she bit down. So I had scratched, so then I'm scratched up, and then I put my finger in her mouth again, and I feel it. It's there in the very back. It's like halfway, it's past her throat, but I can barely get my finger, and I can touch the tip of it. So then I'm petrified, right? Like, I don't know if the ambulance can get here in time. I don't know where my phone is. I try to do, we took a lot of those baby, baby first aid classes, and so I try to do a little bit of the Heimlich maneuver, and nothing was happening. And she doesn't have a gag reflex either, so to make it worse, she can't even try to gag it up, right? It's just sitting there choking her. And it's the fully inflated balloon. And so I get her out of the bathtub, and she doesn't have a gag reflex either, so to make it worse, she can't even try to gag it up, right? It's just sitting there choking her. And it's a fully inflated balloon. And it's a fully inflated balloon. And And really just by a miracle, I remembered that they gave us, she has a suction machine, and they gave us this suction hook. It looks like a torture device, but it's got a big hook on it, and it's probably about this thick, and it's a big hook like this. And I thought of it, and she had had kind of a spit problem the night before, so it was on the floor in my bedroom, which was right next to where we were. So I ran and got that, and I kind of wedged her mouth open with my finger, so you can believe I was like cut up in so many ways from her little teeth, because she bit down really hard. And so I wedged my finger in there and the hook on the other side, and I put it in and literally popped it out. And there's probably a few times in my life that I've prayed with the faith that I prayed with at that moment while I was doing this out loud. And I can guarantee you that my hands and my actions and my mind were guided by God to save my little baby. My little baby, my little big girl. She's getting bigger and bigger. But, I've reflected on this experience. So it happened probably only last week. Has it been a week even? Probably happened last week. It could be a week and a half ago. And I got the button out, and all's well that ends well. Put her button in, and we made it to our appointment. We were going to her speech therapy appointment, the one that we have a special speech therapist that does speech with assisted devices. So it's adaptive communication speech therapy, alternative forms of communication. I can never remember what everything's called. Alternative forms of communication speech therapy. And so we went to the speech therapist, and I think on my last story, which was I think in the same week these two things happened, but my last story I talked about how the doctor was so helpful and so gracious and so nice after I had such a hard morning with her feeding problem. And I think this kind of goes to illustrate that as special needs moms, people around us can affect our mood and affect our and not that we should allow them always to, but we have to be really cautious with what therapist we're talking to or what doctor we're talking to, and be aware of their personality. And if we've just had something really scary like that happen, like I've thought a few times maybe I should have canceled that appointment, and maybe I just wasn't ready to go in and try to deal with this particular woman who I think is a fine person. But I kind of told her the story, and I had just said Millie, I didn't tell her like this extent, but I said Millie was choking on her button this morning. It was pretty scary, and her reaction was literally like blank faced. She had no emotion and no like, oh man, I'm so sorry that happened, or like, how you doing, Mom? None of the things that some of our doctors do and some of our doctors don't, right? That's a thing that happens in our lives. Is some of our doctors are more compassionate and caring, and some aren't. And this particular one isn't particularly feeling. And so I think one of the things I need to do better with, and I have been as the time has gone by, like the older Millie gets, the better I am about really setting clear boundaries with doctors and things about what days we will be available, what days we won't be available, what times I will do things, and I won't put myself out for certain visits. if I know what that visit's going to entail, if I know that the doctor, the therapist is more difficult or not very compassionate, then I'll make sure that it's in a time and a place, in my days and in my week, that I'm really set to kind of deal with it. And this is one of the things that I've learned, but this therapist happens to be one of our new ones, and so I didn't really know her as well. Now I'm pretty aware of kind of if we have something really upsetting happen, I would probably reschedule her appointment with her, just because some days you just need somebody to look at you like a person. And so that was one of the things that I thought about a lot after this, is that she was just kind of unfeeling. And I don't know what she deals with in her day, and I'm sure she has tons of people coming in with lots of stories. We all have stories. This group will be a group of people who have lots of stories of, we've had more near-death experiences than most. People will have ever in a whole lifetime, probably within even, it could be 6 to 8 months of your child's birth, that you've had more near misses with death than probably anyone that will ever deal with. And that can be isolating, and so sometimes you expect the people who you work with and who work with these kids to be a little more aware and cognizant, and they're not always, which is okay too. But it's really good to be aware of who you're dealing with, and when it's just not going to work in a day. So that's one takeaway, is just to be aware that maybe I wasn't in the right mindset to go and try to do adaptive technology. It was scary, and we had to leave within a half an hour of that experience. And but maybe it was who knows, keep my mind off of it, keep going, moving forward. A lot of times that's what we do too, is move forward, press on. There's nothing, what are you going to do? Sit and mope, So I think just gauging yourself and where you're at, and not sitting and feeling sorry for yourself, but also knowing, what might work for you and what might not. And so to be really aware and cognizant of where I'm at, and who I can kind of trust as far as understanding, because it is so isolating. I know I said that already, but I'm going to say it again. It is so isolating to have experiences continuously that most of the people or if not all, will never understand. And so that's one of the reasons that I try to make these, that I'm trying to do this, is so that you can see somebody else has been there too. Somebody else, I don't know what happened with your child in the last week, but could be something scary. I'm gonna guess something crazy happened with one of the equipment or the things. And so that was one of the takeaways. The other takeaway was that I'm really just grateful. My son wrote me a letter. He was away on a church mission for our church in Florida, and he was away from the time Millie was about 1.5 to 3.5, and I guess she was about 3 years old, so about 1 to 3. And he wrote these letters to each of our family members, and he wrote a letter to Millie that year for Christmas. He didn't have any money as a missionary, and he sent letters, and it's probably the best Christmas presents we received that year. His letter to Millie said, and it's so poignant that it is stuck in my mind for my since he wrote it. And when I look at Millie, I always think of this letter that he wrote me. He actually wrote it to Millie, and I read it. But he said, Millie, people are going to tell you that you needed us, that you needed our family, and that we're so great for taking you. We're so great for taking care of you and loving you. But that's not true. The reality is, we need you. And it's true. The reality in that moment with my daughter was that I needed her to survive and to live, and that I love helping her thrive. And that she is good. She is pure good. And she's going to be okay. And whatever happens, she's going to be good. And she is going to end up in the very best of places. Because she has the sweetest spirit. And the reality for me is that I could use the charity and the endurance and the caring and the loving that she is providing me an opportunity to provide her with. And so, with that being said, I would just say that this one's a little more of an emotional post, but I imagine that if you're here, that you may have had an emotional time or two. And I think, like I always try to say at some point in these, is that you are not alone. There are other people driving around on the roads that have just had scary experiences like you. And if you need to not feel so isolated, then this is a good moment to feel that you have a part of a group, and that you have a friend who has been there or has been somewhere near there adjacent, who's been in a difficulty adjacent position. And we do not have the same experiences. Probably none of us will have the exact same experiences, but we do have experiences that can share and bond us, and that will help us all understand each other in a way that maybe most of the people we interact with could never understand. So I'll just leave it there and say thank you for listening. And also, I'm here for you, and here for this community of really strong women who deal with really, really difficult things. And I'll just send my love out to all of you good moms. And with that, I'll say bye.